The $20 bill was all I had left. My son made sure of that. 3 minutes earlier, I'd had a passport, a phone, a wallet, and a son I trusted. Now I stood at Gate 17 in Puerto Vallarta's airport, staring at empty seats where Brandon and Jessica had been sitting. The plastic bag slipped from my fingers. Water bottles, trail mix, protein bars, $12 spent being thoughtful. I had $8 left in the world. My name is Robert Mitchell, 58 years old, retired from the construction supply business I built over 30 years. My son Brandon is 35, married to Jessica for 6 years. They'd been living in my house rent-free for 2 years while Brandon supposedly got his catering business going. The week in Mexico had been good. Beaches, dinners, the kind of time I thought we'd lost after my wife Sarah died 5 years ago. But this morning, something felt wrong. "Dad, we need water and snacks for the flight," Brandon had said 20 minutes ago. "You know what we like. Can you grab some stuff?" He pressed the 20 into my hand. His fingers felt cold. I need to make a work call, and Jessica has to use the restroom. I should have seen it then, the urgency that didn't match a simple errand. Now I yanked my backpack off my shoulder, hands shaking. My spare shirt was there, toiletry bag, nothing else. The inner pocket where my passport always stayed, empty. No phone, no wallet. I checked every space twice, 3 times, nothing. All gone. I ran to the gate counter. "The couple in seats 14 and 15. Where did they go?" The young woman typed, scanned her screen. "Mitchell party. They took the earlier flight to Denver. Standby upgrades. Departed 20 minutes ago." "Denver?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "We're going to Seattle. Their boarding passes were for the Denver connection, sir." Denver. Not Seattle. Not home. The terminal tilted. I stood at airport security, trying to explain to an officer. My son took my passport, my phone, my wallet, everything. He just left me here. The officer had kind eyes and a tired face. "Do you have any identification?" "I have nothing. $8 and a bag of water bottles." She took my statement. Names, addresses, flight numbers, gave me a case number and suggested I contact the U.S. consular agency downtown. $8. No identification. No way home. The shock lifted slowly. Stranded, yes. Helpless, no. The businessman in me woke up. First, identification. Second, money. Third, home. I walked 20 minutes through streets where tourists haggled over jewelry. The U.S. consular agency was small and efficient. American flag on the wall. "Tell me what happened, Mr. Mitchell." Patricia Henderson listened as I explained everything. "My son did this. He's been living in my house rent-free for 2 years. I think he wants to keep it." Something shifted in her expression. "We can issue an emergency passport. 4 business days. Requires a police report and payment of $135. I emptied my pockets on her desk. $8. Mexican coins. A breakfast receipt. Patricia excused herself, returned with paperwork. "Payment deferred until you reach home. Emergency assistance fund will help. You'll pay it back." She studied my face. 28 years doing this job taught me to recognize who will and won't. You're not broken. You're angry. Angry people find their way home. The hostel room held 6 bunk beds and smelled like salt air. My roommates shared their dinner. Bread, cheese, fruit. A German girl lent me her phone. I dialed my home number. It rang. No answer. Tried again an hour later. Still no answer. Brandon had booked a week in Denver. Enough time, he thought, to establish possession while I was trapped here. That night, lying on the bunk, a memory surfaced. Last month, Brandon visiting, being helpful, attentive. "Dad, we should update your medical directive, just in case something happens. Simple form. Just sign here." The document had been on his laptop screen. I signed with the electronic signature pad, trusting him completely. Never saw a printed copy. That wasn't a medical directive. 4 days later, Patricia handed me the emergency passport. Thin, temporary, but official. She also gave me an envelope, $600 cash. Pay it back when you can. I found an internet cafe. Flight to Seattle direct, $420. I booked it for tomorrow morning. Brandon's flight went through Denver. Meetings there. A week, maybe more. I'd beat him home by at least 4 days. My checklist. Document everything. Change the locks. Find that paper I signed. Get a lawyer. Not revenge. Justice. The plane taxied down the runway. Through the window, Puerto Vallarta shrank beneath us. The wheels left the ground. My mind was already in Seattle, already at my front door, already planning the expression on my face when Brandon walked in and found his father waiting. 3 hours and 40 minutes to Seattle. Brandon didn't know I was coming. The rideshare driver pulled up to my house 47 minutes after landing. I stared at it from the back seat. Pale blue Craftsman, white trim, the porch I rebuilt 5 years ago. $675,000 of real estate. My life's work. Brandon lived there rent-free and wanted to take it all. Robert! Daniel Kowalski emerged from next door. White hair, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. Retired history teacher. He'd lived there 12 years. You're back early. He walked toward me, expression cycling through surprise and concern. Where's Brandon? I decided quickly. An observant neighbor was almost as good as a friend. They came back early. Different flight. I had some delays. Tell me what you saw when they were loading the car. Daniel's eyebrows rose. It was early morning. 3 days ago. Boxes, bags, more than seemed normal. I waved, but Brandon didn't wave back. Seemed focused. 6:30, maybe earlier. Premeditated. Hidden. If Brandon comes by, don't tell him you saw me. Understanding dawned. I haven't seen you. You're still in Mexico. Exactly. I retrieved the spare key from its hiding place, the fake rock near the rhododendrons Sarah planted 20 years ago. Unlocked the door, disarmed the security system, stepped inside. The house smelled stale, closed up. I moved through rooms with increasing speed. Living room, grandfather clock missing. Dining room, silver service gone from the china cabinet. My bedroom, Sarah's jewelry box emptied. The study, my Omega watch, collectible worth $2,800, not in its case. The vintage Leica camera, absent from its shelf. Brandon didn't just abandon me, he robbed me first. My home office occupied the converted sunroom. On the desk, centered perfectly, lay a manila folder. I opened it. Deed of gift in bold typeface. Property address, mine. Grantor, Robert Mitchell. Grantee, Brandon Mitchell. Date, 4 weeks ago. My signature at the bottom. Witnessed, notarized. My hands didn't shake. They were steady, cold. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was frozen solid. I remembered teaching Brandon to ride a bike in this driveway. I'd run behind him, one hand on the seat, the other on the handlebar, until he found his balance and rode away on his own. Now he wanted the driveway, the house, everything. I borrowed Daniel's phone and photographed everything. Every empty space, every gap, the desk, the deed from every angle. Document everything, trust nobody. Inside, I picked up the landline, called my bank. This is Robert Mitchell, account ending in 7743. I need to verify there's been no unusual activity. Security questions. The representative checked. Everything looks normal, sir. No attempts to add authorized users or change beneficiaries. One small relief. Brandon took objects, took the house on paper, but hadn't drained the money yet. At 8 o'clock exactly, I dialed Margaret Chen's office, real estate attorney. The receptionist began offering dates next week. My son stole my house. I have the document. I need help today. 30 seconds passed. A different voice came on. "This is Margaret Chen. Tell me what happened." I gave her the facts. She asked 3 questions. "Is the document notarized?" "Yes." "Is your signature genuine?" "Yes." "Did you know what you were signing?" "No." "Come in at 11. Bring everything." Her office was downtown, 20th floor, corner view of Puget Sound. Margaret Chen was precise in movement and speech. Gray-streaked black hair pulled back severely. I placed the deed on her desk. She examined it for 5 minutes, making notes. "This is a properly executed deed of gift. Legally, as of this date, your son owns your house." Words hit like physical blows. However, that word carried weight. "If you can prove you were deceived about the document's nature, we can argue fraud." "Walk me through the signing. What exactly did your son tell you?" "He said it was updating my medical directives. Power of attorney if I became incapacitated." "Did you read the document before signing?" "It was on his laptop screen. Small text. He scrolled quickly, said it was standard language. I trusted him." "And you never received a signed copy?" "Never." Her pen flew across the notepad. "That's our angle. Misrepresentation. She made copies, scanned everything. This will cost money. Retainer today, $5,000. If it goes to trial, another $10,000 to $15,000. I didn't hesitate. "I sold my business 3 years ago. I have resources. What are our odds?" "If we can prove deception, 60-40 in your favor. But fraud is hard to prove. I'm not walking away from my house." "I didn't think you were." The locksmith arrived at 5. Middle-aged man named Frank. He worked efficiently. Front door, back door, garage entrance, new keys, new deadbolts, $340. Frank handed over 3 sets of keys. "Old locks are disabled. Nobody's getting in with old keys." I tested each lock twice. Solid, secure, my house again. 2 days passed. I spent them preparing. Documents organized, new keys in my pocket, phone charged, recording app tested. Late afternoon on the 2nd day, I heard a car door slam. Brandon's silver Honda sat in my driveway. He stood beside it, staring at the house. Confusion dawned on his face. Jessica emerged from the passenger side, whispered something I couldn't hear. Then I heard a key scraping in the lock. Once, twice, 3 times. Harder. The old key, useless now. Brandon cursed quietly. Jessica's voice came through the door, sharp. "What's wrong?" "Lock's jammed or something." More scraping. Metal on metal, nothing turning. Footsteps moved around the house. They tried the back door. They returned to the front porch. "Call him," Jessica said. "He doesn't have his phone. We have his phone." My new phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Yes?" "Dad, is that you?" "It is." "Where are you?" "I've been trying to reach—" "I'm home, Brandon. Inside the house. Your keys don't work anymore." Dead silence. "What? How did you— When did you— 4 days ago. Come to the front door. We need to talk." I opened the door but stood in the frame. Brandon looked exhausted. Wrinkled clothes. 2 days of travel on his face. Jessica stood behind him, eyes sharp, assessing. Brandon tried his concerned son expression. "Dad, thank God you're safe. We were so worried. What happened at the airport?" I raised my hand. He stopped. "I know what happened. You sent me to buy water. You flew to Denver. You took my passport, my phone, my wallet. You abandoned me in Mexico with nothing." His mouth opened, closed. I stepped aside just enough to reveal the coffee table, legal documents stacked neatly. I picked up the top document, held it so they could see. Motion to invalidate deed of gift based on fraud. Brandon's face went pale. "That document you had me sign, the one you said was a medical directive, it wasn't. It was a property transfer. You stole my house on paper before you abandoned me." Jessica's hand gripped Brandon's arm. Her voice came out ice cold. "We need a lawyer." Brandon recovered. His voice hardened. "That deed is legal, properly notarized, legally binding. This house is mine. You're trespassing." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." I didn't flinch. "Go ahead. Seattle Police East Precinct already has my report. Case number 774821, theft at Puerto Vallarta Airport. Stolen items from this house. Your neighbor saw you loading boxes." His finger hovered over the phone. Didn't dial. I pulled out my own phone, showed the screen. Red recording dot visible. "This conversation is being recorded. Washington is a two-party consent state. Everything you say from this point is documented." Brandon's phone lowered. Jessica tugged his arm, whispered something urgent. "This isn't over," Brandon said. "No, it's not. But it's not going the way you planned." They walked backward off the porch, down the steps, toward their car. I stood in the doorway until they were gone. Then I closed the door. The new lock clicked solidly. First round, mine. Margaret called the next day. "Brandon has retained representation. Attorney named Michael Brennan. He's filed a countermotion asserting the deed's validity and requesting immediate possession." The battle had begun. I needed more than legal documents. I needed the truth about Brandon's finances. Margaret recommended Sarah Chen, private investigator, former CPA. $3,000 up front. I wrote the check. 10 days later, Sarah called. "We need to meet." She arrived at the coffee shop with a tablet, ordered black coffee, wasted no time. "Your son is drowning, $38,500 in debt." She opened the tablet. Red dominated the screen. $22,000 in credit card debt. 6 cards, all maxed. 3 in collections. She swiped to another screen. The other $16,500 is gambling debt, online casinos. I stared at the numbers. 6 months ago, a creditor filed intent to sue. That's when he started planning this. She looked at me directly. The house wasn't greed. It was desperation. Sarah produced more evidence. Emails from 5 real estate agents, all contacted in January. Subject, property evaluation request. She showed me the responses. 665,000, 680,000, 675,000, 670,000, 685,000. Average, 675. He was shopping your house before you signed anything. Cold, calculated, preparation. There's more. Internet search records from his IP address, January and February. She showed me. How to convince parent to transfer property. Can property transfer be reversed? What happens if someone abandons elderly person abroad? That last one, dated February 18th, made my stomach turn. Brandon researched abandonment 6 weeks before doing it. One more thing. Your son tried to open a bank account in your name 3 weeks before the trip. Teresa Wong at Pacific Coast Bank refused. The signature didn't match. She filed a fraud report. He was going to forge my signature to access money from selling the house. That's what it looks like. Ms. Wong will testify if needed. 2 days before the hearing, Margaret reviewed all evidence in her conference room. The financial desperation establishes motive. The realtor contacts establish premeditation. The search history establishes intent. She organized documents into presentation order. You'll testify about the signing. Describe exactly what Brandon told you. Then we hit them with the planning evidence. Margaret drilled me on testimony. Mock cross-examination. Mr. Mitchell, you signed this document, correct? Yes, but no buts. Resist that. Judge Morrison allows witnesses to explain. Use that. We practiced for 2 hours. My answers got sharper, clearer. One evening, Daniel knocked on my door. Jessica called me, asked me to pass a message. She's offering to settle. They'll sign quitclaim deed, return the house. in exchange for $125,000. $125,000, nearly a fifth of the house's value. She said, "This ends it now." My answer was immediate. No. Tell her no. I discussed it with Margaret the next morning. They're seeing the evidence accumulate. 125 is her exit strategy. She met my eyes. But if we win fully, you get your house free and clear. If you settle, you pay them a fortune for stealing from you. We're not settling. 4 weeks after filing, Margaret called with urgency. Judge Morrison moved our hearing up. 2 days from now. She's reviewed all evidence and wants oral arguments immediately. Is that good or bad? Judges don't expedite cases they plan to dismiss. She's seen something. Be ready. Judge Patricia Morrison entered. The bailiff called, "All rise." Morrison reviewed her notes, looked up. "I've examined all submitted evidence. Mr. Brennan, you may begin." Brennan stood, adjusted his tie. "Your Honor, this case is simple. Adult son, aging father, legitimate estate planning. The father signed a deed of gift, his signature verified, genuine, properly notarized. Now, after a family disagreement, he claims fraud." He gestured dismissively. "Financial difficulties don't prove fraud. Pre-planning doesn't prove fraud. The deed stands." Margaret rose, picked up a document. "Your Honor, the notary's sworn statement details procedural violations. The signing occurred at a Starbucks, not a proper office. Frank Morrison was paid $500 cash, 20 times normal. He was told Mr. Mitchell had mobility issues, demonstrably false." She picked up another document. "The defendant contacted 5 real estate agents before the vacation, requesting valuations. Before his father signed anything, he was pricing the house. That's not estate planning. That's theft planning." Morrison leaned forward. "Mr. Brennan, how do you explain your client paying 20 times normal notary fee?" Brennan stood. Perhaps he wanted to accommodate his father's schedule. Morrison's expression showed skepticism. "And the false statements about mobility?" Brennan hesitated. "I'd need to confirm those allegations." Morrison turned to Margaret. "Miss Chen, fraud is difficult. Can you meet that burden?" Margaret nodded. "The notary will testify Mr. Mitchell was never told the document's true nature. The defendant rushed the process, controlled the presentation, never provided a signed copy." Brennan called Brandon to the stand. Under direct examination, Brandon maintained his story. "I showed my father the document. Explained it was transferring the house. He understood." Margaret's cross-examination was surgical. "You told the notary your father had mobility issues." "I said he preferred not to travel that day." "Did he have mobility issues?" "Not exactly, but yes or no?" "No." "You paid $500 cash for notarization." "I wanted quality service." "Did you tell your father the document was a medical power of attorney?" Brandon paused too long. "I may have mentioned medical planning. May have or did. It was part of a broader discussion. You're not answering the question." I watched my son's face, hand touching nose when he hedged, eyes darting to Brennan, voice rising defensively. He was lying. Badly. Morrison called a brief recess. During the break, Margaret received a phone call, approached the bench, spoke quietly with Morrison and Brennan, returned to me. "Police executed search warrant on a storage unit rented in Brandon's name. Found your watch, camera, silver service. Everything. Physical proof. Criminal evidence." When court reconvened, Morrison addressed both parties. "I've been informed that items allegedly stolen from plaintiff's home have been recovered from defendant's storage unit. This adds a criminal dimension. Prosecution will receive full referral." Brandon's face went pale. Jessica grabbed his arm, whispered urgently. Brennan requested sidebar, argued briefly. Morrison shook her head. Then something unexpected happened. Brennan called Jessica to the stand. Under direct examination, Jessica testified about family dynamics, Brandon's stress, financial pressures. Margaret's cross-examination changed everything. "Mrs. Mitchell, do you know Marcus Webb?" Jessica's face tightened. "He's a real estate agent." "How do you know him?" "Brandon contacted him about property valuations." "Is that the only way you know him?" Silence. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're under oath." Jessica's composure cracked. "We've been seeing each other." The courtroom went still. "Seeing each other, please clarify." "We're in a relationship." "While married to Brandon Mitchell?" "Yes." "And did Mr. Webb have knowledge of the plan to transfer Mr. Mitchell's property?" Jessica's voice dropped. "He helped us. He said he could sell the house quickly, off market. We'd split the commission." Brandon shot up. "What? You never told me—" "Mr. Mitchell, sit down," Morrison commanded. I saw it in Jessica's eyes. She'd already decided Brandon was going down. She was just making sure she didn't go with him. Morrison called another recess. When we returned, her face was set. "Based on evidence presented, this court finds by preponderance of evidence that the deed of gift was procured through fraudulent misrepresentation. The notarization violated standard protocols. The defendant's testimony contained material inconsistencies. The involvement of a third party with romantic ties to the defendant's spouse adds conspiracy to the fraud." She paused. "The pattern of premeditation, combined with subsequent abandonment in Mexico and theft of property, establishes an intentional scheme rather than a legitimate gift. The deed is hereby declared null and void. Title remains with plaintiff Robert Mitchell." The gavel fell. "All stolen property must be returned within 48 hours. Defendant and co-defendant are jointly liable for $8,500 reimbursement of court costs, plus $4,200 for stolen property. I'm referring criminal matters to the King County Prosecutor's Office for potential charges including theft, fraud, and conspiracy." Case decided. I drove home in afternoon sun. The house was mine again. Legally, officially, permanently. Through the window, I saw Daniel's porch light on, walked over, knocked. Daniel opened, saw my face, understood immediately. "You won." I won. We sat on his porch drinking whiskey, talked about baseball, about his garden, about the neighborhood. After months of abnormal, normal felt extraordinary. 2 days later, I drove to Seattle Police Evidence Facility. An officer brought out a plastic bin labeled with my case number. Inside, my grandfather's Omega watch, face scratched but running, the Leica camera, leather case worn but intact, silver service wrapped in evidence bags, tarnished but restorable. Home again, I unwrapped each item. The watch first, wound it, listened to mechanical tick resume, set correct time, placed it in its case on my dresser where it always lived. The camera next, checked mechanism, shutter still worked, returned to shelf. Silver service required polishing. I spent an evening with cleaner and cloth, removing tarnish, restoring shine. Each piece cleaned was a piece of my life restored. Margaret called with news. Morrison issued judgment order. Brandon and Jessica are jointly liable for $12,700 total. Can they pay? Her laugh was humorless. They can't pay their current debts. This judgment goes to the back of a very long line, but it's on their record. Permanent mark. I didn't need the money. I wanted the accountability. 2 weeks later, the prosecutor's office called. Assistant Prosecutor James Riley. Mr. Mitchell, we're offering your son a plea agreement. Plead guilty to theft and attempted fraud. 18 months probation, restitution, 200 hours community service. No jail time, but conviction on his record permanently. I don't want revenge. I want accountability. If probation accomplishes that, accept the plea. Riley sounded relieved. Thank you. This is proportional. Proportional. The word felt right. I met with estate attorney Richard Taft in Bellevue. You want to ensure your son can never inherit this property. I nodded. Never. Richard drafted a new will. Clear language. I explicitly disinherit my son, Brandon Mitchell, from any claim to my estate. Upon my death, my house shall transfer to the Seattle Housing Foundation for low-income elderly housing. I signed, feeling strange peace. My son tried to take everything. Now gets nothing. Not as punishment. As protection. 2 weeks after the judgment, I learned Jessica filed for divorce, cited irreconcilable differences, named Marcus Webb as co-respondent, requested full custody, claiming Brandon's criminal record made him unfit. Brandon lost his father's house, his wife, and access to his child in 6 weeks. Early August, warm Seattle evening. I sat on my front porch with iced tea, reading newspaper. Down the street, a moving truck backed into the apartment complex. I saw furniture being loaded, cheap pieces, some I recognized from Brandon's room. Brandon carrying boxes, moving slower, thinner, older looking. Jessica wasn't there. Marcus was, directing movers, eviction, couldn't afford rent. Brandon looked up once, our eyes met across the distance. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just looked at me for a long moment, then went back to loading boxes. The truck pulled away. Gone. I sat in silence. I'd won. Justice happened. My son was destroyed. None of it felt good. It just felt done. Later, Daniel came over. That was them, wasn't it? Yeah. How do you feel? Empty. Not happy, not sad. Just empty. You won. That's supposed to feel good. Winning meant my son lost everything. That's not victory. That's survival. Sometimes survival is the only victory available. As September approached, I started attending a support group. Family fraud survivors met Tuesday nights. I told my story. When I finished, a woman asked, "How did you do it?" Documentation, evidence, a good lawyer, and refusing to give up. 3 people asked for Margaret's contact information. By October, I'd helped 4 people from the group navigate their own battles. In November, I started teaching a class. Financial safety for seniors at the community center, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. 15 people showed up the first night, 25 by the 3rd week. An elderly woman named Martha raised her hand. My grandson keeps asking me to co-sign loans. Something feels wrong. Trust that feeling. If something feels wrong, it probably is. She came up after class. Thank you, I was going to sign tomorrow. Now I won't. That moment. That's when I understood. The house wasn't the real prize. Purpose was. December arrived, 18 months after Brandon abandoned me at that airport. An envelope sat on my kitchen table. Delivered yesterday. Brandon's handwriting. I'd held it for 24 hours without opening it. Finally, I walked to my office, opened the desk drawer with important documents, the deed stamped void, the police report, the judgment order. I placed Brandon's unopened letter in the drawer with them, took out a label maker, printed 2 words, "Too late," pressed the label onto the envelope, closed the drawer, locked it. Some things don't need to be read. Some bridges don't need to be rebuilt. That evening, I stood at my front window. New locks secure, legal documents filed, justice served. My phone buzzed. Text from Martha. My grandson showed up angry. I told him what you said. He left. Thank you for saving me. I smiled, typed back. You saved yourself. You trusted your instincts. Across the street, lights flickered on in neighbors' homes. My life wasn't what it was before Brandon's betrayal. It was something different, something harder, but also stronger. I walked through each room, turning off lights, checking windows, testing locks. In my bedroom, I wound my grandfather's watch, set it on the nightstand, listened to its steady tick in the darkness. Tomorrow, I'd teach another class, help another person protect themselves. share the lessons I'd learned at such high cost. Justice isn't always satisfying, but it's always necessary. Was it worth it? I looked around my bedroom, the pale blue walls Sarah and I painted, the dresser that held her jewelry box, the closet with some of her clothes I couldn't give away, my house, my life, my terms. Yes, it was worth it. Every dollar, every moment of stress, every painful confrontation. Because some things can't be priced, some things have to be defended, and some victories, even when they hurt, even when they cost everything, are still victories worth winning. Not because of what you gain, but because of what you refuse to lose. Turned off the bedside lamp. In the darkness, my grandfather's watch ticked on. Steady, unbroken, surviving, like me.